Hello everyone, Burb here. Just taking a little break from Champions Meeting Guides, so here's a bonus video on a pretty silly topic, let's be honest. So let's use math to abuse a certain Twitch system. So on the Lightburb channel, we follow the engineering process because I come from an engineering background. So we find problems, we offer the solutions, and then we discuss said solutions. This problem we are talking about today is gambling. Gambling, real money is bad, but this, of course, channel points, they are internet points. They do not mean anything. So I find it fine to talk about because, hey, it's a little bit of good fun. They honestly don't matter. It does not have any real life impacts. Do not use this strategy in real life because there is actual risk. All right, that disclaimer's out of the way. The other disclaimer, feel free to dismiss this as engagement bait if you wish. I will attest that yes, this is good for business. MooMooCow is a creator that is about 36 to 40 times larger than I am in subscribers. He has a Twitch following, he has a YouTube following. His YouTube following is smaller than his Twitch following, and I am but a small YouTuber. So me interacting with a larger YouTuber, it's good for business. The intent of this video is not to try to take the slim pickings of like a hyena on the larger content creator. This is actually a math problem that has a solution, and for once I was actually really excited to do this, not because of the implications, but it's because it's solvable and it's something I kind of know a little bit about. So let's begin this. So MooMooCows, recent stream he's been doing on the Valentine Bourbon banner, he's been taking people in his Discord, his viewers, and he has been having them pull on stream. Meanwhile, he has been allowing his Twitch chat to put up their channel points, again, these are fake points, and pitting them up against each other in order to basically transfer the wealth. So in this case, you are betting from 1 to 50, whether Valentine Bourbon will be pulled in 1 to 50, 51 to 100, 101 to 150, or if it's going to be pulled after 151. Sometimes he also does this as a fifth category for pity. So essentially, if you guess the correct slot in which that Valentine Bourbon is picked, you will win your share, depending on how many points you have put, of the remaining failed encounters. So if you bet in this first block here, the 33% essentially win twice their money because, you put 100 here, you get 200 points here because it's a 2-to-1 ratio of total points. It's just a fun little game, but hey, it's a math problem, right? So this is our good old friend, the Bernoulli trial, because you either succeed or fail again. So you either guess the correct one or you don't guess the correct one. So if you pick any particular zone, that is considered your success, and all the other ones are the failures. So the equation for Bernoulli trial, of course, is P of x equals 1 minus P raised to the n, where P of x is the aggregate success chance, P is the chance of success, and n is the number of trials. Essentially, this means that P is the chance of success because you were trying to find the failure chance, right? Essentially, what this means is as you have more trials, your total failure chance will be going down because you will be multiplying that small extra fail chance, that success chance, over and over and over and over again. So the odds of getting a specific 3-star, in this case vanilla bourbon or Mahona bourbon Valentine, is 0.75%, 1 in like 120. If you were to pull 50 times, your odds are P of x equals 1 minus P raised to the n, or 1 minus 0.0075 raised to the 50. So your failure chance is 99.25% chance. You multiply that 50 times essentially by itself, and you get a 68.64% chance of failure or a 31.36% chance of pulling. Okay? This is the simple way because, hey, 1 to 50 is from the start to 50. That is the total percentage. Your odds of pulling a specific 3-star that is a banner character with a 0.75% chance of pulling is 31% over the first 50 trials. 51 to 100 is a little bit more complicated because 51 to 100, if you pull in the 0 to 50, you can't pull in the 51 to 100. It essentially kills that chance. So this is a geometric distribution because this is using the Bernoulli trial. It's geometric. And this is a survival problem because if you pull in a previous dependent trial, essentially, or a previous nested trial, it kills all further chances. Because when A is dependent, this is saying when A is dependent on A, when B is dependent on A, not occurring, which is the survival problem, and A is a nested event of B, you can do some simplifications. A nested event is simply as if A is a full subset of B. So in this case, if you're pulling for 100, includes pulling for 50. That's common sense. If you're pulling for 100, you're going to be pulling for 50 first, and then you're going to be pulling for the second set of 50. So this is a nested event. The other one is dependent on A not occurring, is the statement that when we pull vanilla bourbon, or when we pull, I keep saying vanilla bourbon, Mahono bourbon Valentine, we stop when we pull her. So the first success is what we are going for. Therefore, we stop when we pull for bourbon Valentine. So we can use this simplification. This is the standard probability summation that we talked about in the Kiddison Black, what was it? The specialty priority video. Essentially, you can't just add specialty priorities together. You have to remove the intersect because they are counted twice. P of A plus P of B minus P of A intersect B. If you rearrange it, because we are trying to find P of B, you get the P of A union B. So the odds of both of them together minus P of A, and then add the intersect together. By using the simplification, because of these two things, because it's a full subset, we know that the intersect of these is itself. So it's 0. So we can remove this term from it, and we can essentially just say P of B is A union B minus P of A. So the P of success is P of 1 minus P failure. So the P of pulling from 51 to 100, this is what, if you zoned out that whole time, let's come back here, all right? So P of 51 to 100 is 1 minus P of 1 to 100, so the odds of pulling it in the first 100, minus the odds of 1 minus pulling it from 1 to 50. If you do more simplification, some standard math, some standard rearranging, essentially the odds of pulling in 51 to 100 is equal to the odds of pulling it in 1 to 50 minus the odds of pulling it in 1 to 100. You can trust me on that. You can check the math. This is what it is. It's you just take the lower value minus the upper value, and that's what you end up getting, P51 to 100. So doing the math of this, you essentially take P50 minus P100, so 99.25% raised to the 50 minus 99.25% raised to 100. You get 68.64% minus 47.01%. So the odds of pulling from pull 51 to 100 being the first bourbon Valentine pulled is 21.63%. Notably, it's not the same as the first one. Sorry, I'm trying to find it all the way back here. The first one was 31.36%. This one is 21.63%. Oh, there we go. I had it here. So 100 to 150, we follow the same rules. So we basically take 150. We take 150 and we subtract it from 100. So we do the same thing. 47.01% minus 32.33% is 14.68%. 151 to 200, we do the same thing. We take the failure rate of a 150. We find it's 32.33%. And because we are including pity in this example, we cannot include pity in a different example. We essentially just take the knot. So if the odds of it is 32.33% of failure for P150, that is the same thing as the odds of 151 to pity. So essentially what we have is all possible values are 31.36 for 0 to 50, 51 to 100 is 21.63%, 101 to 150 is 14.68%, and 151 to pity is 32.33%. As a little sanity check, you can sum all these values up and you will find it equals 100%. So these are all possible values. I'm going to grab some water. And essentially, because they're all possible values and they add up to 100%, it's at least a decent sanity check that we did the correct math. So if you notice, 0 to 50 and 151 to pity are the two largest values, essentially. So 1/3 of the money or the channel points on these should be on these two values, but often they are not. And the reason is that 151 to 200 includes the pity. and 0 to 50 is the first trial. So it doesn't have any trials before it that can kill itself off, essentially. So because 0 to 50 is essentially 31% of the trials are not going to make it to 51 to 100, it has a higher percent chance of 21 than 21.63. If you do the math it kind of looks like essentially, hey, if I take 31.36% and I multiply it by 1 minus 31.36%, I bet you it's pretty darn close to 21.63%. And the same thing for 14.68%. It's kind of intuitive when you really think about it. Your odds essentially are 1 in 3.19, 1 in 4.62, 1 in 6.81, and 1 in 3.09. These were like if you're doing it on Keno, like a real gambling, but you don't even need to do that because Twitch is kind of it built in. So the strategy you can essentially implement is take these percentages and look at how many channel points are in each one of these. So 0 to 50 has 33%, 51 to 100 has 16%. 100 to 150 has 28%. And then we split the pity. We'll talk about that later. But, it's combined 23% for this. So when you're looking at this, essentially, you have 33% is pretty close to 31.36. So it's properly valued. The 51 to 100, 16% is lower than 21.63%. So it is slightly undervalued. So if you were to put some channel points there, you would have a greater chance of making channel points because you have margin. You have about a 5 or 6% margin here. In this third one, so 100 to 101 to 150, it's 28% of the channel points are on it, but only 14.68% chance of that actually hitting. It is greatly overvalued. If you were to put a channel point on this, there is essentially, you'd have an expected value of about half of your channel points. It's still possible it hits, but there's a less chance than anything else. And finally, if you combine the pities just for simplicity, we'll do the math later for that. 14 plus 9 is like 26%. 26% has, 14 plus 9 is what, 23%, sorry. 23%, there's a great margin here at 32.33% versus the 23%. So if you put money on this, or you put channel points on this, well, you essentially would have a slightly better chance to make some channel points. Let's take another example. You have this example. This is before he changed it to adding pity. 33% on 0 to 5, 31.36. 11% on 51 to 100 for 21.63. 39% for 101 to 150. And 15% for 151 to 200. You can do it in your head for a second. I will pause here. And yes, it's pretty much the same thing. It is about valued properly for 0 to 50. 51 to 100 is slightly undervalued. It's actually greatly undervalued. This one is in 101 to 150 is greatly overvalued, and 151 to 200 is greatly undervalued. So betting your channel points on 51 to 100 or 151 to 200 is pretty good. Example 3. Same thing, 47%, 16%, 27%, 10%. You take it. Now, 0 to 50 is greatly overvalued. 51 to 100 is roughly in your favor a little bit. 27% on it versus 14%. It is 101 to 150 is greatly overvalued as well. And by a mile, and you see this is the one that actually won, the pity is actually 32.33 versus 10%. You had a very, 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 very good chance of a good outcome on the 10% that voted on the 151 to 200. One more example, we are going to include pity this time, and the math is essentially pity is 22.17% of the time. So you just subtract it from the 151 minus 200, and that changes the numbers. So 26% on 0 to 50, 28% on 51 to 100, 20% on 101 to 150, 11% on 151 to 200, and 16% on 201 plus, which is your pity. If you look at it and you compare the percentages, it's very simple. 0 to 50 is greatly undervalued at about 5 or 6% because there's 5 options. 5 or 6% is a good margin. It is slightly overvalued for 51 to 100. It is greatly overvalued from 101 to 150. 151 to 200 is about properly valued. And again, pity is greatly undervalued. So why is pity consistently undervalued? First of all, I'd like to talk about this first value. Why this first value is honestly one of the most accurate for all of these. And I think the reason is that people intuitively understand the math of the actual math value of the first 50 polls, because there's no intersect to subtract out of it. You can think about it in your head and you can reach that conclusion. I think most of the population is able to do that without even thinking deeply about it. It's just when you compound the complexity as the time moves on that you see that the valuation gets further and further away from the actual correct expected value, if that makes sense. Why is pity undervalued, I think, is a completely psychological problem, and I think it's a good one. Essentially, you don't want to really root for pity. It's the reason why people playing craps don't really... They vote the pass line more than the do not pass line. You don't want to root against the table. You don't want to wish for others' misfortune. Even if the misfortune is statistically advantageous for you, there's something gnawing at you in the back of your mind that says, hey, it would be nice if they didn't have to go to pity for Mahona bourbon. I mean, I'm sure there's some people out there that wish for other people's misfortune, but at the end of the day, and I think this has been shown in video games a lot, is that people want to be the hero. They don't really want to be the villain, because being the villain, it feels bad innately for 95% of the population. And I think this is shown here in that the pity is not actually, you have the statistical minds that are putting money on it, putting your channel points on it, but it's never going to really reach the actual expected value, because you have to remove the entirety of your emotions for that. You have to accept that's going to happen, but you don't want that reality to occur. So why would you put your channel points on something that you don't want to occur? So I thought that was just a pretty interesting psychological problem. That's kind of why I chose this topic, because, hey, this is math and this is psychology, and I think these intertwine quite greatly, and there's some things we can think about it. So if I may, you don't have to do this, but technically, if you wanted all equal odds, Mr. MooMooCow, from this little tiny YouTuber that just makes stupid math videos from time to time, if you technically wanted equal 25% odds, you just set the probability on the left for the P of B to 25%, and you find that 1 to 38 gives you 25%, 39 to 92, and 93 to 184, and 185 to 200. The problem is you probably get a bunch of questions saying, why are these thresholds so weird? But if you basically notice, like the first one, because you have higher odds, the polls go smaller and smaller, and then the later ones, the 150, because it was only 14%, it's almost half of the polls. So, just food for thought. I'm just kind of putting it out there. Gambling is a scale, though. So if you try to actually implement the strategy and getting your channel points, well, if you bet everything on one of them and you expect it to happen, well, small number of trials means that you have a high variance. So if you bet everything at the start, or you bet a non-consistent amount, your odds are they may still be in your favor, but your variance is so high that you may lose everything. So the best way to really do this is offer a significant part of your channel points that you can consistently do trials, like maybe 1/10 or 1/20th or 1/30th of your total channel points, and over time, throughout every single trial, you will statistically be growing your channel point bank account, I guess. At the end of the day, though, gambling is a scale. You could be the unluckiest person, to quote a certain other video of mine. So there's no failsafe for this. Gambling has no failsafe. These channel point trials do not have any failsafe. There is no pity except for the small amount of channel points you earn from watching it. So you could be the unluckiest person. You could just consistently lose every single time. However, if you remember these thresholds here, this is the one with the pity, and you find that one is greatly undervalued, you statistically have an advantage over everyone else. Well, in conclusion, this has just been a little dumb video about channel points, and just because I watched a stream and I found it kind of interesting, I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to get back into making the end closer guide. I know this is just... Hey, I needed a little break for a second. So end closer guide probably will be today or later today or tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed. Burb out.